Hi everybody, and welcome to today's tutorial. My name is Charles Kalima. I'm the head of Department for Commercial and Engineering Studies at AMILAC Training Center. So we're delighted that we can share this information with you to prepare you for your final exams. Today we're going to be looking at the differences between direct and indirect procurement. It is a popular exam question in L4 M1, the scope and influence of procurement and supply. So let's go for it. Okay, so then just to introduce, I will be using the words procurement, cost, spend interchangeably. So if we talk about direct procurement or direct costs or direct spend, we're talking about one and the same thing. Okay, so don't get confused about that. Now, when you think about direct and indirect procurement, think of them in view of the following, especially for examination purposes. Number one, in the eyes of the manufacturing sector versus the retail or distribution sector. Number two, in the eyes of services procurement or services organizations. And then we looked at Professor Michael Porter's value chain that separates organizational functions into primary and secondary functions, and he defines direct and indirect procurement in a very unique way. Now, it's important that you have all these in mind because direct and indirect procurement question usually carries about 25 marks, and you have to have the detail of all these aspects in order for you to get as close as possible to the 25 mark points for your final exam. And then lastly, I'm going to talk to you about the procurement methods that I used for direct and indirect procurement. Okay, so put on your seatbelt and let's do this. So number one, let's look at direct. Just a quick definition of direct procurement. Like I said, I'll interchange the two: direct procurements or direct costs. No confusion, the two of them mean the same thing. So direct costs are all the costs that can be directly applied to produce a specific good or service. So if any cost can be traced down to a particular product, then that cost in production of that product becomes a direct cost. Now let's look at the manufacturing sector. What do they consider as direct costs or direct procurements in the manufacturing sector? Things like materials for production, and we'll give examples just now. These materials are incorporated into goods that will be sold. Now, some organizations manufacture goods not to sell but to lease out. If they're going to lease or hire them out, whatever is procured to be incorporated in those goods to be leased or hired are also regarded as direct procurements. Now, the labor costs which is associated with producing those specific goods. So if a particular person has been hired specifically and they don't do nothing else, all they do is work on the production line for that particular product, then the cost associated with their labor is regarded as direct costs. Okay, that in view of managers who manage various departments, they manage whatever department, their costs, their labor costs or their wages are spread across different sectors of the organization. So you cannot regard those as direct. The managers' wages and labor costs as direct costs. So let's look at examples of the manufacturing sector products that are regarded as direct procurement. And manufacturing sector likes to segment their procurements based on either direct or indirect procurements. So you could be a direct procurement buyer and your job is to procure raw materials. Your job is to procure components, sub-components, or even sub-assemblies, all right? In the retail sector, on the other hand, they procure items for resale, okay? So all those items that you procure, you do minimal transformation of those items, and usually just packaging or repackaging of those items. Those are regarded as direct procurements. All right. Then in the services, if you're in a services environment, all costs associated with delivering a service are regarded as direct costs or direct procurements or direct spend when you analyze spend within that organization. So I take an example of a cleaning company or cleaning services company. You are a buyer in a cleaning services company. So if you procure materials like the cleaning detergents and so on, those materials, because they are going to be regarded, they'll be associated with generation of profit. They'll be going to do your core activities. They are regarded as direct procurement. Now, Professor Michael Porter, one of my favorite professors, he presents a slightly different but overlapping look at the distinction between direct and indirect procurement through the use of his value chain model. Now, Professor Michael Porter distinguishes, like we said earlier, the activities of an organization into two. So an organization has basically got these two activities. There are those that are called support activities and those that are called primary activities. The primary activities are core functions or the reasons why this organization exists. Support activities, on the other hand, are support, like the word says. So they are not primary, they are not core to the business. And usually these are the things that you find some organizations do outsource. So primary activities bring resources in, they transform them, they move products to customers, and all procurement for primary activities is called direct procurement, right? Then if you look at secondary activities, these secondary activities support primary functions. So indirect procurement is all procurement for secondary or support activities. So for you and me who are in procurement, all the things that we procure for our personal use in the department or for our departmental use are regarded as indirect procurements. All right. So indirect costs are expenses that, so we're shifting gear now to indirect procurements. So indirect procurements are expenses that apply to more than one business entity, e.g. rent, electricity, and so on. And then, and this business entity or business activity is the departments within the particular company. These are shared types of activities or shared types of costs. Unlike direct costs, you cannot assign indirect expenses to specific cost objects. Indirect procurements are items for consumption by the organization, e.g. printing services. So all the costs associated to your toners, to your paper, and hiring and leasing, if you hire or lease or procurement of printers, all those are indirect procurements. They are usually non-strategic return items. They may be procured from multiple suppliers. So you've got various suppliers that are available. Because they are not a major part of finished goods, they have very minimal impact on an organization's bottom line. All right. Now let's look at the comparison between the two, and that will be it for today. So if you look at the procurement terms, direct procurement are sourced on long-term type of agreements. So you have long-term contracts, say for 4 years or so. Some companies even go to 10 years, depending on the strategic nature of the particular product. You want to have security of supply. These are items that are core to your business. So if you transform raw materials into components, you want to secure contracts for raw materials on a long term, all right, to ensure that there is security of supply. They are usually strategic items and requiring a collaborative approach in negotiations. They have a direct impact on the organization's bottom line, as these procurements will eventually be incorporated into finished goods for sale to end customers. The other consideration for direct procurement is that the quality is highest priority, because ultimately they determine the quality outputs of your product. So you have to focus on the quality requirements of those products, and in fact most organizations will specify those quality requirements. You know about the types of specification that you can provide to a supplier. So the conformance specification and performance specification, you will go all the way to make those particular specifications, because direct procurement is critical. On the other hand, indirect procurement is not does not influence the items to be sold, right? So buyers will normally buy based on supplier specifications. You don't issue out a spec for the paper that you want. You go to what is cheaper, what is cheapest, and is fit for purpose, and you buy the paper that you need. And that brings us to the end.